All right, so anytime you want, but I don't know.
Okay. All right, I think that it's time for Paul to talk about his basement lab and how that got started and what he did down there and all that fun things.
Well, first let me say, this is what I was going to talk about
Oh, good.
originally was Paul the Mole.
Paul the Mole.
Oh,
Down in the basement in Brainerd, and he was digging away and created a whole new room down there. And pretty soon he's got his own house, and he's down in the basement digging holes to create a whole new room.
Now, wait a minute, how did that happen?
At our own house?
Which
At our own
one?
house, Ryan's the
mole.
one who did lots of the mole work.
Oh, I thought you were doing it. Well, I thought both of you were doing it.
Oh, I was talking about the basement lab at the old house on
839.
Yeah.
39.
Yeah, that was a musty, dusty, little tiny L-shaped room that we kept cans in, basically canned food, or home
storage.
canned food. And there was a basement stairway that came down that way. And eventually we moved the basement stairway to someplace else, which left that room nice and square, 10 by 10, I think. And so the folks let me adopt that space, and we fixed it up with a fancy ceiling and a carpet and a fancy workbench and storage area and lights and all that stuff. Paneling.
Did we actually take out that staircase? I don't remember.
Yeah,
that. I remember having the other one in the back.
That's what made that room possible. And
Yeah.
actually,
And they
one
made
of
that into a closet, didn't they? The one off the,
yeah,
the magic
one
door?
of the cool things about that staircase is that Dad paneled the wall where the door was. You know, the nice thick
Right.
tongue and groove paneling, and he put a touch latch on it, so you couldn't see the door at all. It was just more paneling, and there was no latch on it. You had to push on it in order for it to open up. And the meter reader came in once a month and went down the basement to read the meters, and it took him years and years before he figured out how to use that door. He would come in and go, I know there's something special about this, but I don't quite remember. And finally one time he came in with lots of confidence, and he punched on the door and it opened up and there was no stairs there, just a closet. And it's like, ah.
And then what was your door to your space in the basement?
Oh, that one, the magic door.
Yeah, the magic door.
We used to impress our friends too.
I put a wash machine solenoid in the door so that it would automatically open at the push of a button. And we added a door spring, but instead of the door, or instead of the spring closing the door, it opened it. So it was magically locked from the outside. And I had enough buttons in my room that there was always one in reach if anybody knocked on the door. But I also put a little magnetic switch just at the shoulder height in one of the cabinets as we walked towards that door. So I could walk by and the door would automatically open up, and other people would walk by and nothing happens. They go, what? But how does this work?
Where was the new staircase? That must have been after my time.
That was an addition that was just off the kitchen on the west side.
Mostly Dad's shop was in there, but then the stairs to the basement.
Yeah, it was all for a shop and storage basically.
Okay.
But it had a stairway that went to the outside door of the basement. That was now an inside door. By the way, we were at a rummage sale of that house only a couple months ago,
Yeah.
and I told them I used to live there, and they let us actually take a tour.
And by the way,
Cool.
they bought it within the last couple of years, and it's on Zillow, and you can take a tour on Zillow.
Oh, really?
Because I did it with Tim, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they changed this, they changed that.
Yeah, like I
It was
was,
really fun.
walking around and I'm going, there's a missing stairway. The stairway that goes upstairs was missing.
Oh, they
And so,
changed that?
where'd that go?
Where did it go?
That's in the living room now.
Weird.
It comes up and
I didn't notice that.
makes
But
a couple of
I would
turns.
recommend it for anyone who grew up there. Go look at it on Zillow. So then I tried doing the Fargo one that way too, but it wasn't sold recently enough to have any pictures in there. That would be cool to see. Oh my God. Here's the picture too.
So you were talking about your magic door.
Yeah, so
And she's
So at that time, Joe was what, 5 years behind me? So you know, being 16 years old, and he's 5 years behind, he was an annoying little brother.
Why does that keep coming up?
And I didn't want to be annoyed anymore from him always knocking on the door. So I took a 14,000 volt neon sign transformer and set that right by the doorknob on my side of the door. And so it drew a very fine arc about this far. You know, it takes many thousands of volts to jump that far, and set it up so it was just barely doing it, very fine arc. But if anybody touched the doorknob, that arc would get big, fat, and yellow, which means there was a lot of extra energy going through somebody. And Joe would touch that and get zapped, and I thought, well, that would be the end of that. Joe won't bother me anymore. And 20 minutes later, there's 5 kids his age, all standing there daring each other to touch it.
So the magic door and his siblings. Do you guys have any other, before high school level or shortly thereafter in high school, any other stories?
We played with dowsing rods a lot,
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Dowsing rods.
and I thought that, you know, we learned stuff about human potential doing that.
There was one guy that I bumped into that was an old guy who lives alone, and he used to be in the Navy, and he would do map dowsing, which he invented himself, and he knew a lot about two-way radios and that stuff, so he had lots of theories, but he would focus on a spot on the map, and he would hold the dowsing rods, and he would have to rock back and forth in order for it to work. And if what he was looking for was in that place on the map, the rods would cross. And I watched him do that a few times, and then he showed me how if he finds what he's looking for, then he would take that little section of the map and blow that up to a full-size map, and he would do it again, and until he finds the place that the rods cross. And at that time, there was a submarine that was lost in the Caribbean, and there were Navy ships searching for it, and so he thought he would douse up the Caribbean, and he doused up a half a dozen dots, and a half hour later he'd do it again, and some of the dots moved, and after he did that enough times, he realized they're moving in a search pattern, because he used to be in the Navy. He knew what a search pattern looked like. All of them were moving except one. So he focused in on that area, and he doused that up, and he could douse up the shape of something once the map has been blown up enough times. You just keep on dousing and see when you get a reaction when you don't. And it looked kind of like a misshapen submarine. It had a big notch out of it, and he wasn't sure what he found. They eventually found the submarine right in that spot, and the pressure had caused caused the conning tower to cave in and had that shape. And so I really didn't know if he was fooling himself or if he was really onto something. So that's why we started playing with dowsing.
What did you look for with dowsing?
He could find almost anything that he wanted to focus on. You know, he decides what he's focusing on, and some days were better days than others, and he learned how to measure whether it's a day with strong signals or with weak signals. He would look at where railroad tracks come in at an angle, and he would douse up the signal someplace inside that angle. And if it's a weak day, it'd be right by the corner, and if it's a strong day, it'd be way farther out. And I don't know if the guy was crazy or if he was very gifted.
But what did you kids look for?
So we started playing with dowsing, and we would look for coins and things like that.
Dad's little wooden wheels. We would make just a series of, you walk along those like stepping stones, and then you would slide something underneath.
Slide a
one,
coin under it.
and then we'd assign, so put something in your, light-proof, soundproof room, and then tell them to go out and douse for it. And seemed to me we did pretty well.
Yeah, we had a better than average chance.
Yeah.
Did you used to go with us to the football field and go under the bleachers the day after a game?
Yeah, when we were little kids.
We were little, were you using that at that time?
No, that was way before that
We
time.
used to make a lot of money that way.
The other one was to go to the church, down at the bottom of
Oh, yeah.
the church steps.
So people would drop their coins.
People
on
would
the
drop their
side.
coins, or some of the,
Wallets we
people
had.
sold newspapers right at the
Right.
bottom of the steps, at the St. Francis.
Yeah.
And then on each side of the steps, you'd have someone selling them newspapers on this side and someone selling on this side. And you could find dimes, just
We found
all around
wallets and
those
they got
places.
rewarded when we returned them to the people, and we found lots of stuff.
Yeah.
That's when we learned how
I
to
never
pickpocket.
returned dimes.
Oh, we found
Oh, look,
wallets.
you dropped it.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. Let's go to Fargo.
I do have one other
Oh, go ahead.
childhood one. Tribbles
Tribbles.
from Star Trek. When we
Uh-huh.
used to play and the Tribbles, pretend the Tribbles were chasing us all through the yard. And that was a big deal for a long time, was we played with, we'd run all over the neighborhood because the Tribbles were coming.
I also remember we would play classic music.
Grand Canyon Suite.
Grand Canyon Suite.
On the couch, and
Yeah, and when we hit the storm, they were all pretending the furniture was boats. And we're rocking back and forth.
in
By
the
the time the storm was over and the music, all the furniture's upside down. And
we had a very
The
tall mother.
cushions were the rafts.
And the neighborhood kids just didn't get it. They didn't understand us on that one.
That was great though.
Uh-huh.
What other childhood game things?
Wasn't
do
there
you
ones
guys remember?
with more like lava, so you could only,
You could only get certain, you could only
Yeah.
buy certain cushions. And how about the Saturday afternoon movie at 1 o'clock? And we'd cover all the windows with cover all the windows so it'd be dark in there, and it was usually a scary Frankenstein kind of story.
On the black and white television.
Yep.
anything else?
Do that in the basement at Herds. We'd go over there, except it'd be 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
It would be Billy Lagosa and Boris Karloff. And we thought that was scary then.
Yeah. What was that guy's name? Art. 1 o'clock movie with Art. And he'd always say, well,
He's
you
got a
must
good
have,
job.
he's got a good job.
What's
Because
your
it was all the
hubby do?
housewives would call in and to
Right.
win the contest, and they'd say, what does your husband do for a living? And no matter what they said, he'd say, well, he's got a good job. Every single time.
Except one time, he asked the guy, well, what do you do? And he said, I don't do anything.
Then he's like,
And he just rips into this guy for being a lowlife freebie. And after, about a minute of this, he goes, I'm handicapped, I can't get out of my wheelchair. Oh, well, on to the movie.
Okay, how about Fargo? What was that move like for you? Now, you moved up there, right?
Yeah, I was gonna move to Minneapolis and go to Dunwoody Institute for auto mechanics, and Dad pulled me aside one day and said, I've done a little research and there's a place in Fargo that you could do your auto mechanics studies, and we'd like you to come. I don't know why they weren't letting me go. I was 21.
Okay.
Because it was a big house.
It could be. I wasn't putting any money into it.
And, but Steve, you didn't move to Fargo.
No, I was college living in the cities.
Okay. So, but everybody else did then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And tell us about that house in Fargo. That was
just got a
quite
picture of it
interesting.
today.
Yeah.
What?
My cousin Dura is driving through Fargo, and today she sent a photo of our house,
Oh, wow.
coincidentally.
It was built in 1909 by the richest guy in town, is what we heard, as a wedding gift for his daughter.
Yeah.
And he owned a lumber yard, so they built everything about it really right.
Thought he was a banker.
No, he owned the laundry yard.
Now, you got to go up to Fargo and see it? Mm-hmm. Okay. And Brett, I don't know if you ever saw the Fargo place.
No, they lived on the Moorhead side
Okay.
when I was in high school.
Okay. That house was tremendous. And one of the fun things that I learned later was that they actually had created like a sewer. So you shut it off because during the floods, it would stop it so that you wouldn't get the backup into the house.
I think
Still
that was
got
the
rats.
Moorhead one, wasn't it?
No,
Fargo.
Fargo had a valve on
Oh, okay.
the sewer.
Didn't we have a place that we used to do archery basement too? Like a big long tunnel that we would,
And pellet rifles.
and pellet, yeah, we did
It
archery.
was the
pellet
old
rifles.
coal chute, and
It was this narrow little room.
Until we took over the basement and made
No,
an
no,
apartment.
it was not in the apartment.
Oh, it was in, okay. Cool.
it was back behind the laundry room.
Yeah, back behind the laundry.
It had been the coal chute and some other room, and then they knocked out the wall between them, which made it just the right range for shooting BBs and pellets and
And archery.
archery.
Okay. And Paul, he went to NDSU and was in the electronics and engineering program, but he was doing more than the engineers.
Played with the robots.
Got it working after they'd never been able to get it working.
Yeah, the 5 years before that, the engineering students built the mechanics of a robot, which was about as tall as a person and had 4 big car batteries in the base, so it was real heavy, and had a television camera for a head that could turn around and go up and down. And then they spent the next 5 years trying to put any kind of electronics on it and failed. They just couldn't do any remote work on it at all. And Bob Cummins and I decided we had to take over the project, as freshmen. And we made a deal with the teacher in charge that if we got the thing working by Parents' Day in January, we could own the whole project. So we worked like crazy, and in 2 or 3 months, we got it all working.
Which was a really, really big deal for me,
Why for you?
because I was a sophomore in high school, and our high school team made the state basketball tourney, which was held at NDSU. And you brought the robot out to the state basketball tourney and be running around and it'll squirt gun on it. So when people, started talking to the robot, he could squirt them with a squirt gun. But I was able to bring all my friends and people I wanted to be friends and just show them this robot and go, this is my brother. This is him doing it. I could get you
robot's
to
my
do
brother.
special things for me and, it was a big deal for me.
Cool. Yeah, we put a windshield washer pump on it and a narrow glass nozzle mounted on the camera, and we put an X on the television screen in just the right spot. And anytime we activated that thing, it would shoot right where the X was on the television screen. And so we had a blast with that.
I don't know how many of you know the trouble that robot got into.
Oh, the first version of the controls for that were kind of susceptible to noise, and when you turn on the motors, that would make some noise, or when you turn off the motors, it would make noise. So once in a while, it would go spastic. It just jumping all around, going forward and backwards and all that stuff, and it would only last for 10 seconds or something like that. But it looked like it was attacking you or something. And there was a female television reporter that was interviewing it for the news that night, and at the very end she asked, "And what else can you do?" And it chose that time to go spastic and attacked her. And on the news, that's where they cut it off.
So was this audio noise or electronic noise that?
Electronic noise.
Yeah.